Hello. Right, I'm going to talk you guys through your first project and checklist of the academic year. And this is Unit 63, Contemporary Fine Art. You are handing this in on the 15th of October at 4 o'clock, unless you are told otherwise. And as I've written here, this project is going to be inspired purely on your childhood. So that could be the games you played, toys, food, holidays you went on, clothes that you remember wearing, memories from when you were growing up. We will work through some of that in class and have a think about the sort of things that you're going to use as inspiration for that project. Now, every project I give you guys is going to have a checklist like this, and you will see that there are 4 columns broken down into the week of the project, the task that you're going to do, the assessment criteria that the task relates to, and then there's a box here for you to tick to say when you have done each task. Okay. So we're going to hit the ground running, and week 1 we are going to start by exploring some different mark making using acrylic paints and also watercolors. Okay, and we are going to look at your first artist for this project, and you're going to produce your own piece of work inspired by them. Now, this task and the tasks for the following 2 weeks are all related to this piece of pass criteria here. So P stands for pass. You'll see further down there's an M, which is merit, and then much further down you'll see criteria with a D in front of it, which means distinction, and that goes up in order. So pass is what you have to do in order to achieve the unit, and you do have to complete every unit. You then go up a level to merit, and then up another level to distinction, which is the highest grade you can get for each unit that you do. So, like I said, we're going to start with some artist research and some samples inspired by each artist. And we're going to do the same in week 2, but we're going to research the work of Peter Blake, who is a pop artist, but perhaps one of the lesser known pop artists. And again, you're going to produce your own work inspired by them. And then in week 3, we're going to look at the work of Michael Craig Martin, and you're going to, again, produce your own work inspired by him. And once we have completed all of these tasks, you will have done your first bit of pass criteria, which is where you've been asked to investigate a range of contemporary fine artists and their influences using annotated studies. This is the example's way of saying making your own work inspired by them, to identify an artist of personal interest. Okay, so that's going to be the first 3 weeks, which sounds like a lot for one piece of pass criteria, but you are starting a new course. We've got to get you, kind of break you in a little bit gently to it. And I find that artist research is the thing that we need to do in the most detail, because that's what's going to inform ultimately what you then go on to make. So we're then going to get to week 4, where you are going to pick one of the 3 artists to look at in more detail. Okay, it's up to you which one of the 3 you choose, and you are going to produce 2 more pieces of work inspired by that artist, and that's covering this pass criteria here, which is asking you to explore the work of one of the contemporary fine artists you've investigated. So you're just going to look at them in more detail. Okay, we're then going to move on to week 5, where you are going to start to think about some ideas about what it is that you would like to make for your final piece. Now, the only kind of requirements that I have in terms of what that final piece is it has to be inspired by one of the artists you've researched, and it has to link to your childhood in some way. As long as you do that, it's up to you what you kind of create and how big you create it. And that's something that I'll talk to you guys about in class and work through with you. But you're going to come up with 3 ideas for me. And as part of that, you're going to have a drawing for each of your ideas. So, a drawing of what your final piece is going to look like. And you're going to explain what you're intending to make, which of the artists you've been inspired by, what you're communicating to your audience about your childhood. So is it about a favourite toy, or a memory of a particular holiday, or a best friend from when you were small? Whatever it is about your childhood that's inspiring it, I want you to tell me about it. And you're going to explain what materials and techniques you're going to use. Now, this is the first time we've seen merit criteria cropping up. So you can see here, to pass, you have to develop ideas for your personal piece of contemporary fine artwork. The personal bit is important here. That's why I'm asking you to base it on your childhood, so it's personal to you. The merit is asking you to use your exploration into the work of your chosen contemporary fine artist to influence the development of an original, imaginative, and thoughtful idea. So if we just unpack that a little bit, here it says the exploration of the work of their chosen contemporary fine artist to influence it. So you have to link your work to an artist in order to get the merit, okay? Which is why I've made sure that you do it here, okay? It's also asking you for an original, imaginative, and thoughtful idea. So original means it needs to come from you. It needs to be something that you have thought of, not just a copy of something that already exists. It should be original and different. Imaginative is quite hard to define exactly, but I think that, you know, the more original and the more risks you take and the more you push yourself to try maybe new materials or techniques or ways of working than you've done, the more you can make it kind of personal and about you. The imagination will come as part of that. And then the last bit is a thoughtful idea. Now, I always explain this to students in that unless you can explain in your work what your work is about and what you're communicating and why you're doing it, I can't say that your work is thoughtful, because unless you write those things down, they all exist in your head. And I can't see into your head to know what it is that your thoughts are about your work, which is why I've said I want you to put here about what you're communicating about your audience, about your childhood, because that's the thoughtful element. That's showing me that you're understanding the topic and the artists you've researched and what you're trying to say to the person who's viewing your work. If you do all of that, then hopefully you're going to hit that merit criteria. I'm also going to ask you to produce some samples to test your final idea. So we don't just come up with an idea and then make a final piece straight away and hope it works out. We always test things. So that might be testing out a particular painting technique or testing out drawing to the size that you're planning for your final piece. Or it might be trying out some different compositions of the objects that you're going to use. So you're going to produce your 3 samples for me. Once you've done that, you are ready to start making your final piece. So I've said in week 6, you're going to produce your final outcome that's going to be inspired by the artist you've studied and your childhood. And you will see here there are 3 bits of criteria, and this is where we see the distinction criteria for the first and only time in this unit, actually. So to pass, you need to produce a competent final piece. So competent means that you have done it well. So it is something that is good. If I am driving a car competently, I'm driving on the road, I'm not hitting any pedestrians, and I'm keeping an eye on my mirrors, okay? I'm not taking bends at high speed and managing to, I don't know, miraculously drive faster than everyone else without hitting anything or anything like that, but I'm doing it all right. Okay, so competent is a good, solid, you've shown some skill in the techniques that you have given us. The merit is demonstrating proficient skills. So if you're proficient in something, you are better than average. Okay, you are showing that you are good at the technique or the skill that you're trying to show off. So to go back to my car analogy, at this point, I might be more on a kind of racetrack, showing I can take bends at, 150 miles an hour. So I'm showing that, I'm proficient in my skills, and you're going to produce a successful piece of fine artwork that is of good quality. So again, good quality, we want to make sure that you haven't smudged all of the paper, you haven't been storing it in the bottom of your bag and it's got all crumpled and a bit kind of ragged around the edges. It's going to look good and show off proficient skills. The distinction criteria is asking you to produce a very original piece of work. So that comes back to what we were talking about with your design ideas, that it's going to be unique to you and what you're interested in. It's going to be skillfully finished. So you're going to show a really high level of skill and technique in what you've created, and of a high quality. So again, that goes back to making sure that it's good and well produced, it's not crumpled in the bottom of a bag, and displays a thorough understanding of the materials and processes used. So depending on what technique you've chosen, you're showing that you really understand how to use that material to quite a high level. So when you're thinking about maybe working with acrylic paints, for example, maybe you've chosen the right texture for the paint, depending on the area of the painting that you've done. Rather than just taking paint straight out the tube, you've maybe mixed different shades and tones to show that you really understand how to use those paints and how to manipulate colour. So you're really, pushing the boundaries of the level of your work in order to achieve that distinction criteria. Then the last thing that you guys are going to need to do is plan how to present your work and do that appropriately. So that's going to be a decision around how you put your final piece on display for the public or people in the department to see. So are you going to frame your painting? Are you going to mount it on white paper? Is it going to go on a wall in the corridor with good lighting? Have you decided actually maybe you'd rather present it digitally? So maybe you've scanned it in or photographed it and put it onto your Instagram account. So this has got past criteria to appropriately present your work. So present it well and in a logical place. An inappropriate place to display it would probably be, I don't know, the bottom of a swimming pool where it's going to get wet and disintegrate, or behind a door on a random corridor somewhere in the college. You've got to think about somewhere that a piece of artwork would be logically presented. For a merit, you're going to consider and use effective presentation, which successfully communicates your intentions. So in order to show you've considered it, I'm expecting to see in your work some different options for how you might present your work. So it might be like, right, I could present it here in the corridor, I could present it in the same corridor, but I think it might look better with a frame around it. And you've kind of weighed up some different options, chosen the one that you think is the most effective for your work, and explained to me why that's the best method to choose. And then once you've done all of those things, that is going to be your first project finished and handed in. As with anything, if you've got any questions you're not sure, you can always come and ask me and I will go through it with you. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of an understanding about what I'm expecting of you guys for this unit.